What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast where you didn't really ask for it, but hey, we're going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and, well, anything about movies. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and hey guys, listen, if you're searching on the web for another movie podcast and you accidentally stumble across this Reel Me In business and you have no idea what is going on, well, don't be scared. Come join the party and come listen to Joel and I squabble about, fictional things in life, but you know what? That's what's so great about it, is that we're so passionate about it that, we have a podcast for you guys to just talk about the thing we love in the world the most, movies and movie-related content. So, if you are new to the show, welcome. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. But if you are new and you have no idea what we do on the show, what we typically do is we'll go over some movie news and some movie trailers that drop throughout the week, and we will commentate on them for you guys. And then we will have a review or reviews of movies that drop on said weekend of the recording, and then box office results to accompany that. And of course, Joel will have a surprise review that he will just drop on you guys randomly, or even two surprise reviews just randomly, and you have no idea what it is. This is episode 247. Guys, it's getting crazy. That means next week on episode 248, a year from that point, we will reach episode 300, and it just blows my mind. This is 247, and the main review for on trial, the one we're going to examine further. Don't really know if there's much to examine, but we're going to try. That would be the new Predator movie, The Predator, from Shane Black and 20th Century Fox, and that is what Joel and I saw this week. God bless our souls. That's what we're going to be doing. And of course, Joel's got a couple surprise reviews, but like I said, he's not going to reveal that until later. And speaking of the Joseph, he has been gone for a long time. I told you guys that he was lost in a cabin in the woods last week, and that was absolutely true. You thought I was joking, but he divorced me. He took some time off, but then he came back and he was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it for the fans. I'm like, that's what you should do, Joel. Don't do it for me. And so right now we're in a bit of a marriage counseling crisis situation. So you have to bear with us here. But Joel, how was your so-called vacation? And I'm a lot of people don't really talk to us online. They just kind of listen to the show and go about their day, which is totally fine. But I will guarantee you that most of our listeners, as soon as they clicked on the Nun episode and they realized one or two things. One, it was an hour shorter, and they were like, oh, what's happening? And when they clicked on it, they realized that I was by myself. I'll guarantee you half of our listeners quit listening because they love you, and they're just like, well, if Joel's not here, I'm not going to listen to this guy. So Joel is back now, and so you can all sing the praises. He is back from vacation. So Joel, how was your vacation? What did you do? And what's been going on, man? Just let us know.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks. I mean, in more than one way, because we had recorded the fall preview on a Monday. So it's been, let's see, then there was the following Sunday. It's really been about 3 weeks, I think, since we talked. Maybe I'm doing the wrong math there. I've been on vacation, guys. It was a really good vacation. It was much needed. We went to Wisconsin, my parents and I, and dipped over to Chicago and also Evanston, Illinois one day. Just kind of sightseeing, taking some time off to do stuff. I did do a couple of productive things. I saw The Nun, which was very forgettable. I saw The Predator on Monday, and I'll get to that in a second. But otherwise, it's just like we went horseback riding one day. We took a boat tour of Lake Geneva up in Wisconsin, which is beautiful. We saw the Harley-Davidson Museum in Milwaukee, which is a lot better than I thought it would be, just because I'm not into motorcycles. But it was really interesting. And we just kind of chilled. I watched some movies in our resort. We have this Holiday Inn Vacation Club thing, membership that we have. So we had a resort that was up there, and yeah. And then the big thing of the week though was the Chicago day trip. We went out there for an afternoon and evening. The first part of it was this sort of little game type thing that we do called an Urban Adventure Quest, where you download it. You have to pay. It's a game you have to pay for, but you download it, and then it's sort of like a scavenger hunt with information as the things that you gather, not actual items. You kind of learn the history of the city as you go along, and it's just a bunch of things like 19, 20 questions long. And you go around the city, and it takes a couple of hours, and it's all on foot. We've done those in I guess. My parents have also done a couple of them just by themselves, but like in Houston, Austin, San Antonio, really only Texas cities up until now, Dallas and Fort Worth, and then this is our first non-Texas city, so it's really cool. Lot of buildings, a lot of buildings. It's like a lot of really imposing buildings. And we saw a couple of the spots where they filmed parts of The Dark Knight, just because we were walking around, and got to go inside the Tribune Tower, which is where Gene Siskel worked for however many years he worked there. So that was pretty cool because one of our clues sent us there to the lobby. So that was pretty neat. And saw the Bean, which is it's also known as Cloud Gate. It's a big thing right in the middle of Chicago where it reflects you as a kind of a funhouse mirror right in the middle of the city. It's a big sculpture. It's really cool. So it was a really lot of fun. And then that evening was one of the most significant points of my life so far. I'd say as a film writer. I got to meet our good friend Mark Dusick. We had been in contact with each other for more than 10 years now. It was in early 2008 when I first emailed him. So. And it's kind of 11 years in the making because I found his reviews in summer of 2007. So that was pretty big. Nice guy. And we saw The Predator together. I was his plus one at the screening, and we had dinner before that. So that was really cool. And I only got to meet a couple of other people. A lot of critics are at TIFF right now, or were at TIFF at that point. If they aren't still. And but I got to meet Don Shanahan of everymoviehasAlesson.com, and Ryan, I forgot how to say his last name, Jagiello, I forgot. Anyway, of the Cinema Job podcast set by Emmanuel Noisette, who's a freelancer, I think. So that was pretty cool. I didn't meet as many people as I maybe would have wanted, but we kind of picked the wrong time to go. So if I wanted to meet more than just Mark Dusick. But yeah, it was a really good trip, and it allowed me to clear my head a little bit, regroup some. I've been moving at like 1,000 miles an hour for several months now since my last vacation in March, and or March, whenever it was, earlier this year. In the spring, yeah, so it was late March, when we went on vacation, and yeah, so really, really nice. Got to do a lot of lazying about, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the way you were describing it sounds really cool to like follow someone online for all those years and finally get to meet him, and then he's nothing like you imagine. He's actually he wasn't even human, right? He was like a goat or something.
He is a robot. I
knew it. Yeah, Mark seems like a pretty cool guy. But yeah, I'm jealous you get to go to Chicago. I've actually never been. I know this isn't a food podcast, but one of my favorite foods in the world is pizza, and I know that is the deep dish capital of the world, and I've always wanted to go up there just to try some deep dish pizza. So eventually,
we actually went to a pizza place where, called Gino's, which was great.
Yeah, Gino's East.
Yeah, which technically we went to it in Wisconsin, but it's still it's in the same. It's only about an hour and a half away, so it's the same kind of pizza.
Well, Joel, you and I are lucky because we actually have two in the DFW Metroplex. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's
Well,
one. There's
it's
one.
not it's not the best pizza I've ever had. That would be Jets Pizza. I don't know if you've ever had Jets, but
Mm-mm.
Jets is amazing. If I can plug them a little bit, they're really really good. If any of y'all have a Jets near you and have never tried it, do that because it's the best pizza I think I've ever had. But yeah, and I've had New York pizza as well. New York pizza is good. I went to a little independent place when I went there for my senior trip back in high school 10 years ago now. So New York pizza is really good. I think I've been to every major city now, which is pretty cool because I mean it's been years since I've been in like Los Angeles. I don't remember it very well, but I've been there. I've been to Atlanta because we went to the Coca-Cola factory. Been to Washington D.C., which I guess is a district, not a city, but um, a major populated area, I guess. Yeah, so I think that Chicago was my last one that I needed to go to. Pretty sure. So,
Yeah,
uh,
I'm excited to eventually go up there. I have no idea when, but yeah. So Joel's week was pretty great. Mine's been hectic the past 2 weeks. So I didn't tell Joel this, and I didn't tell you guys this last week, but the reason why I was at my parents' house, because I was at a funeral last Saturday. One of my family members passed, and so I've been dealing with that. And my dad got a job in Georgia, so him and my mom are gonna be moving there.
whoa.
So it's like they're selling the house. We have to get the stuff out. My brother's in California, and it's like it's just been nuts, guys. So that's why I didn't say anything last week. Just because it's still kind of fresh, but I think I'm just slowly trying to just keep pushing forward, Joel. But that's why I like doing these things with you guys, and also a couple of other things that pertain to this podcast. One, I don't know if we're reviewing on the show, but guys, I saw The Oath this past week. I don't think I can talk about it, but man, what a movie! I can't wait for Joel to see it, and I don't even think I would recommend it to you guys. Maybe not. You can take that for what you will. But yeah. So, anyways, there is something that's going to be in the works, and I talked to Joel about it, and obviously, if you live in the DFW area, it's going to be big. It's going to be one of those risky moves where I do for our show, and if it works, that's going to be great. It could propel us into something. If it flops on its face, then I'm glad we gave it an effort. But the reason why I say it is because it's going to be costly, and it's going to be very, very strategic in how we do the details and stuff. But if we can pull it off, I don't think anyone else in our Metroplex has done this. But if once we get it finalized and stuff, I will. I'll let you guys know if you live in our area or wherever. So prepare for that because whatever we do, I'm just going to tell you right now. I'm going to record it and I'm going to throw it up on the channel. So what is that? I don't know, but it's hopefully it's like a next year thing, but it's going to take a lot of planning. But anyways, that's pertaining to this. But so even though Joel was out for a couple weeks, there have been several interesting bits of news that have just dropped, and I'm sure Joel's just eager to talk about them. So, Joel, what's happening in that movie news world?
Yeah, okay, so this one's topical to the movie that we're reviewing this week, and we'll get into what we think about the movie itself later on, but some controversy happened surrounding The Predator. And this is pretty tricky stuff. All right, so it was discovered, and I think the information was released by Fox. I think they sent out a press release about this, that Shane Black had cast a friend of his in the movie in a small role. One scene that I think we see the end of in the movie. Actually, I think that one character's introduction was originally going to be this scene, and it ends with her being shuttled off somewhere. But it was cut out by Fox when they realized his past, and this person is a registered sex offender who Shane Black believed was, I guess, I don't know if I don't know if he believed he was innocent it's kind of a complicated case as far as I was reading about it, but the guy was convicted and has been on the sex offender list for a while, and Shane Black believed that he was being railroaded by uh, the the justice system, legal system, whatever. And so he cast him in this role, and that kind of came out because Fox discovered that that was his past. And so there's a lot of questions about this. How did they, only just find out about this? And a lot of people have been like, they should have known this, but the problem is that studios can't really do background checks. And that's something that I didn't realize. That actually answers a lot of questions about a lot of other stuff that's happened that's similar to this. People being cast in roles that, ends up that they're a criminal or that they have some past that the studio didn't know about. It's because the studio can't pay for background checks. That's a whole legal thing that there's no real way to do that unless you have the right connections or some sort of, I don't know what those connections would be. Probably legal ones, something like with the police department. I don't know, but detective. I'm not sure how that works, but in any case, it caused a big scandal because Olivia Munn was in this scene with him, and the context of the scene was apparently that he was making a lot of really forward comments and advances toward her, a lot of sexual comments, which obviously, given the the nature of him as a person, was troubling. This kind of spun out of Tiff. I think she was there, right? Or was she there? No. Yeah, she was there. And so she was given an interview, and none of the other cast members gave an interview except, and it's really because he's a kid, Jacob Tremblay, who's also in the movie. And so this caused a lot of people to, I think, overreact, and I'll say why in a second. Not about the situation itself. The situation is awful. They shouldn't. Shane Black shouldn't have cast him. This definitely reflects poorly on him. But I think that the overreaction was believing that the system in this case didn't work. And I'm gonna cite Scott Mendelson of Forbes, who kind of pointed out that despite there was a delayed response from the other actors. Eventually, I think Sterling K. Brown was the first one who, wasn't at TIFF, so he wasn't really made aware of this until several days after it happened, or after it came out, I should say, came out in support of her, and then slowly the other actors did. I think that the controversy was that there wasn't a more immediate response from the cast members. But I gotta say, and I don't know if you'll agree with me on this, but I think that the system worked in this case because there was a studio that became aware of a problem and fixed it very close to the premiere of the movie at midnight at TIFF on whatever the Friday was. I think it was on a Friday. And was it the 4th? I think it was like on the 4th or 3rd. Anyway, and I think that in this case, I think that everything worked out for the best because there was an apology from Shane Black. Now, I mean, it was kind of a weak apology. He mainly just took responsibility for it. I didn't really hear an "I'm sorry." He certainly didn't say "I'm sorry" specifically to Olivia Munn for putting her in that position. And she had every right to be outraged about that. It's an awful situation, but I think that how it was handled by everybody else, I think that shows that in this case the system worked in terms of something untoward happening to a cast member of a movie and the studio, responding in kind responding, what is the word that I'm looking for? I've lost all my words over the vacation. Respond. I don't know. Anyway, I think that they responded well, though. I think that they took the scene out. They kind of gave a press release that said, we don't like this happened, and I think ultimately the situation was resolved in a way that um, that it still, I mean, it still doesn't quite reflect very well on Shane Black, but I think it does on everything else about this situation, that it was resolved so peacefully. So that's pretty much the situation. I just wanted to get your thoughts about this, Chase.
Yeah, I mean it's bad all around, and I mean I saw the apology video. It seemed okay at best, but you're right. Those key points were omitted from his whole entire statement. But I mean, is it awful this happened? Absolutely. But I'm kind of with Joel to where like I am a little glad that the system worked. I'm glad that someone raised concern. I'm glad that the studio that is responsible for distributing this movie into thousands of theaters was like, okay, we need to stop this rollout right now, edit the scene out, and then re-export and do all that stuff. So, I mean, I'm glad they acted swiftly on it, and Shane Black realized it was wrong, and I wish he would have worded it differently. And I think everyone handled it to the best of their ability. But maybe this will kind of spark a bit of more, I guess, studio interference in a good way, because Shane Black is one of those guys to where he does have clout, to where if he wants to make a movie, I will bet you money that the studios won't really interfere with him as much because he's Shane Black. But now maybe with stuff like this, maybe they'll look into something like a background check, or just something to vet people to where like they don't have this happen again, because this is not good news to come out like a week before your movie comes out. And so like I said, I'm kind of with you to where like it's bad that it happened. The apology could have been better, but I'm glad that Olivia Munn said something. I'm glad that the studio was like, okay, we need to stop this, and they changed it. And so I even though it is a bad story, I'm glad that there was a little light at the end of the tunnel where like something positive happened out of it. So that's just the way I look at it.
Yeah, this is a lot better than some of the responses to similar controversies that have come out in the recent months. Some of them have just kind of shoved it off. Thinking specifically of, who was it? Oh, the Scarlett Johansson. That initial response, and then the kind of the saving face of the the following response. This was a lot better handled, I think. Even if I don't think every loose end was tied with Black himself, I think everybody else kind of made up for that. The next thing is us becoming rumor mongers, because Mark Ruffalo has stated that the ending of Avengers 4 is being reshot. Now, of course, reshoots are regular things in movies, but I think that and obviously this could very well be the case, that news coming out of reshooting after reshoots have mostly finished, especially given the current state of the MCU, when it comes to James Gunn. What do you think this means? Because I think that maybe the character of Drax, as played by Dave Bautista, could die now. And I think that that's what's being reshot. I think, I've said it before, I think that perhaps this has led to I think that this has perhaps led to the realization that maybe Drax's character ending can be him dying in the battle against Thanos. And so do you think that maybe this is what they reshot? That maybe because he's saying that he might not return to Volume 3, which he said in the past couple weeks, that that maybe this is what's been reshot, that maybe in addition to a lot of the other reshoots that have occurred, just the various ones that are regular for a big blockbuster like this, that they've specifically reconfigured some of the plot. Do you think that that might have happened in the wake of all of this?
Yeah, it's one of those things where you look at it and you look at all the pieces that have been kind of falling into place the past month, where with the whole James Gunn situation, and as soon as you put that in the notes, I immediately said they're killing off Drax. And you know what's really interesting about this is that I'm already angry enough at what Disney did, and I'm already angry enough that they're postponing Guardians 3 and they're doing all this, and Bautista wants out and all that stuff. But you know what? Even if they do this and they kill off Drax, it actually makes sense for his character, like his whole entire arc. And so,
I agree to a fault, to a specific fault, because I think that it's going to be really weird. Here's the running theory about Avengers.
You are correct, though. If you want to think about the gigantic scope of Thanos, it is very weird to have the comedian Drax to kind of off him, and so.
Well, that's not what I'm talking about. I think that it's going to be weird because we have, Avengers Infinity War ended with. Okay, here's the running theory. Of course, I've talked about it before, but one of the running theories about Avengers 4 is that following the ending of Infinity War, we're going to have deaths reversed, or seeming deaths reversed, or maybe they're trapped somewhere, whatever. The people who faded away at the end of the previous movie are going to come back. And that's a big spoiler, whatever. The movie's been out on Blu-ray for several weeks now. I think we're fine. But, the certain characters who faded into dust are going to come back, and they're going to stay back. Not stay back. They're going to stay this time. They're coming back for good, and the characters who died, other ways are not. And then we're also going to have some other deaths because of ending contracts, with Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth. So those people are going to die, and Mark Ruffalo, I feel like the original four are going to die. So we're going to have certain characters, their fates reversed. And we already know about some because, Black Panther has a sequel, Spider-Man has a sequel. 4 or 5, whatever the number of Guardians there are now, most of them, maybe Nebula dies, I don't know, but most of them disappeared in the movie, so maybe Rocket dies. I'm not sure, but the fact of the matter is that if they're going to reverse all of the dustings and then kill off one character, that seems really weird to me. And so
do you think Disney's more cynical and they would reshoot the entire ending to kill off the entire Guardians, since they said 3 is on hold indefinitely?
Maybe. And what they should do is they should take it off hold and cast those characters in the middle of the credits of the second one, and just kind of make them the new Guardians. And that's super awkward, of course, because we had, relatively speaking, just been introduced to those. But and we had just gotten kind of used to their banter, and then their new banter with Mantis from the second movie. So it would be super weird if that happened, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did that, because I have a feeling that Volume 3, as it is kind of tainted by this whole nonsense involving James Gunn and the fact that he's not going to come back. I feel like Dave Bautista kind of putting his foot down on this and saying, I'm not, I might not come back for Volume 3 if at all now, if they're not going to use his screenplay for the movie, and now it's even, he didn't even mention the screenplay last time he said it. So I feel like it's in part, it's kind of tainted now. So it could be that for none of the other cast members, for all of the other cast members, the idea of doing Volume 3 without Dave Bautista is kind of unappealing. And so maybe you're right. Maybe what happens is, certain characters die. Maybe a lot of the characters die in the next Avengers movie, and we're kind of left with a very, very staggered group of very few people. Just a bunch of outliers, kind of, because we have the Avengers team. Most of those are likely going to die. We have a Guardians team, and if this happens, then all of those people are going to die. Gamora's already dead, so there's really only the other ones to kind of do away with. But yeah, it's so strange, and we're about to get into another cinematic universe that's kind of in jeopardy, and I just have to say, I feel like the MCU is a bit of a mess right now, just because of how Disney kind of reacted to these tweets, and now it's this weird like snowball effect for everything else that's going on in the universe, and yeah, I just have to wonder what's gonna happen here. Are they gonna? You're right. Are they gonna kill everybody off? Are they just gonna kill Drax off? But if they kill Drax off, what does that mean for? What does that what does that mean for the trajectory of that whole thing? Because I feel like he's kind of at the heart of this. Maybe he dies when Thanos dies, and kind of their arcs, come together or end together, I should say, and then they can go on. I don't know. It's super weird.
Well,
man.
I can tell you right now, if I had to bet money on it, because I'm kind of familiar with Kevin Feige's strategy, I think at some point next spring, maybe after Captain Marvel, before Avengers 4, he's going to have another kind of event press conference where he's going to reveal the kind of like next movies in the lineup, and we're going to find out if they're just going to pull the plug and be like, yeah, no more Guardians. So we'll definitely find out. But yeah, reshooting it this close, I mean, because I know people are like, well, it doesn't come out until next May, but guys, I mean, they're still working on visual effects and, post-production. It's a heavy, heavy task, and now you have to reshoot an entire ending, and you got to bring actors back and, put them up in makeup, and then you got to send those off to get edited and visual effects. It's just, like this, Disney's just, so you're telling me that this one, white supremacist a-hole on Twitter is taking down this entire franchise, and it's just nuts. You're right, because it's like this little thing that happened is just snowballing into this giant effect, and it's just I don't know, man. I guess we'll find out once Feige has that press conference, because I'm telling you, he's gonna do another type of like event where he's like, all right, this is gonna happen in phase 4, and all this is gonna happen. So I guess we'll find out, Joel. But yeah, reshooting an entire ending to your entire storyline after 10 years is kind of a big deal. So going from one probably set ending to a different radical ending because of this mess is just, yeah, I don't know how it's going to play out.
Yeah, it's strange. It's really, really strange. Speaking of shakeups.
Oh my God, here we go. This was the story I was waiting for.
Okay, so I knew that something was going to happen with the DCEU. They've been having diminishing returns for several years now. People liked Man of Steel, generally speaking, wasn't super popular. The series really wasn't popular until Wonder Woman. People thought that Batman v Superman was a mess. People thought that Suicide Squad was a mess, to say the least. Justice League was a mess. Everything's a mess except for Wonder Woman, which still, I mean, had several bits of reshoots, but yeah, okay, so they're kind of restructuring after The Flash comes out, I guess. They're having their Supergirl movie, and in the midst of this big shakeup, they're going younger, they're going hipper, I guess, and Ben Affleck has kind of already said that he's not playing the Batman in The Batman, which is the next movie in the franchise. Is probably going to be a younger actor who takes over the role. And now we have Henry Cavill saying that he is gone. He's no longer going to be Superman. what are they gonna do? I mean, this is exactly kind of what I wanted them to do, because I honestly felt like they were just kind of coasting at this point. They were coasting on the success, in particular, of Wonder Woman, because Wonder Woman 1984 comes out next year, and well, Aquaman comes out this year, but there's really not so much buzz about that as there is about Wonder Woman 1984. Certainly not about Shazam, which is obviously in the same universe. So are they going to kind of go the way of Shazam and Aquaman, or are they going to say goodbye to the Wonder Woman character with the next movie and just kind of cycle through several characters at a time? Or this is what I've been thinking about for a few days. What are they going to do just in terms of papering over this? Because people had just been getting used to Henry Cavill as Superman. He played him 3 times, and people liked him in the role, even if they didn't like the movies he was in. People liked him in the role, and that includes me. So, what are they going to do here? Chase, do you have any idea?
I don't know what they're doing over there. I mean, the only movie I'm actually like legit excited for in their lineup, for the next 4 is the Joker movie. And I know that's kind of weird to say because we have like Aquaman, we have Shazam, and we have Wonder Woman 1984. But I'm actually looking forward to that one just because it's so bizarre and so out of bounds from what they normally do. That's where my head is at right now. Because, Joel's right. It's like, well, with Ben Affleck currently in rehab, not really wanting to be Batman anymore, and then, Henry Cavill is out. It's like, but you're going to keep Jason Momoa as Aquaman and Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, but you're going to introduce these new characters like Shazam. Are you going to go that way? Are you going to keep it's just, I don't know what they're doing. It's just, from day one, they've just been kind of throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And now they have different leadership over there now, and so I don't know how. I think his name is Walter Hermada, and I don't know how he's going to structure this entire universe as it kind of plays out. But I'm one of these people that really loves Man of Steel. I think it's the best Superman to date. I know, fight me on it. I've never been a fan of the cheesy Christopher Reeve Superman, Dean Cain. I'm not a fan of those. But Man of Steel was the first one that actually clicked for me, and I actually think Zack Snyder, besides Sucker Punch, is a talented filmmaker. You can fight me on that as well. And then BVS was solid. I liked it, but I actually liked that 3-hour long director's cut even more. So I really like him in BVS. Don't really care for Justice League. It's kind of like whatever. It's not a bad movie. It's not a good movie. It's just kind of it's there. But I do think Henry Cavill is a fantastic Superman. I also thought Ben Affleck is a fantastic Batman. But the fact that these two are on their way out right now, and they're your two title characters for the DC comic line, that's just crazy to me. And when you hear about these stories with like his manager like wanting more money and stuff, I don't know who is at fault in terms of Cavill or his manager. I don't know if it's her asking for all this money or if it's him asking for all this money. But if it was honestly over a debate on whether how much he should get paid for the cameo in Shazam, get over yourself. It's a cameo. Like, why are you asking for? I don't know how much it was, but I'm assuming it was so asinine. That's why they let him go. And I've also heard that he's a diva, and it's like, It's like, okay, here's the deal on Cavill. I like him as an actor. I think he's great as what he did in Superman. He's good in Fallout, and all the other stuff that he's done. He's solid. He's a solid guy. He's not the best actor yet, so I don't think he's in any position to be asking for all this money. I think you should just keep playing Superman and try to grow not only within that character, but also grow as an actor for your entire career, and you just kind of pissed it away. But whatever. Yeah, it's just a bunch of headless chickens running over Warner Brothers right now, and I know Joel stepped out for a second, but Joel, I actually said that out of the 4 movies that they actually have coming out, I'm actually looking forward to the Joker more, just because it's so out there and bizarre that I'm excited to kind of just see this kind of like otherworldly adaptation of a character that we got like in Suicide Squad. So yeah, I'm just, I'll continue to watch these because I'm a sucker for this genre, but I'm just seeing them kind of spiral out of control, because the one thing, and this is the last thing I'll say about this, and I'm hoping Warner Brothers and the DCU, they'll find like some type of vision. Even if you do not like, because I'm going to bring it up, it's just bound to happen. If you do not like some of the Marvel movies, that is completely fine. That is your opinion. I am fine with that. We can have a discussion. Up to a point, Joel didn't really care for most of them. But you know what I got to respect the most? Kevin Feige had a vision. He has a vision till like 2060. The guy has like 100 movies lined up through the same storyline. He knows what he's doing. So even if you don't agree with some of his choices, I can still respect the man because he is a leader. He has a vision. He is a fan of this stuff. He knows how to work these characters and these storylines, and that's why they are successful. They have a plan. They have a vision. People can see confidence in that. When you have stuff like this happen over on the other ball team, you go, I don't have any confidence in this brand anymore. I will still watch them, but now, after what happened with Justice League, and now with this, and hoping, well wishes for Ben to get better in rehab. It's just like they just need to sit down, have a plan, and stick with it. I remember back in the day, I don't know if Joel remembers this, I remember when they had their shareholders meeting, and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to have like Justice League Part 1, Part 2, Cyborg, Green Lantern, Flash. They had all this stuff lined up. And even if you disagree with some of that stuff, I was like, okay, let's just see where it goes. They have a vision. I'm down for it. But just ever since, I would say ever since probably the reception of Suicide Squad up until now, and then with like reshoots and all the drama happening behind the scenes, it's just getting worse and worse. I actually thought they were off to a solid start, with Man of Steel, BVS, and Wonder Woman. I'm like, cool, I like some of these quite a bit. Let's just see where they go. But, man, I don't know what they're going to do. And to be honest with you, this whole entire industry speaks on money. So if Aquaman and Shazam make a lot of money, and I already know Wonder Woman 1984 is going to break the bank, Joel said, do they continue with those characters? Because, half of your cast is going to be recast. Or you're going to go a different route. Like, they don't know what they're going to do. And
I think they live or die on Shazam, actually. And I think I've talked about this before.
I told you that it is such a horrid idea to come out 3 weeks after Captain Marvel and 3 weeks before Avengers 4. You're going to get sandwiched in, and people are going to they're not going to see it as much as they would see a Captain Marvel or Avengers 4. So you have positioned yourself, you literally cornered yourself into not being as successful as you could be. And so I don't understand why they don't put Shazam out in the forefront. I'm actually giving Warner Brothers a leg up. Why don't you put that in February and capitalize on that kind of Deadpool time frame where it's Shazam looks like it's a very family friendly oriented superhero film. Why not capitalize on that? I don't understand why you're sandwiching it in between like that. It makes no sense.
They'd force Fox to move Dark Phoenix again, because that comes out in February.
I don't know.
Next year is insane. Nothing can move around really unless it moves to another year. But yeah, I agree. It's a bad release date. I feel like maybe they looked at the release calendar and were like, okay, well, I guess we better put it here because it's going to get swallowed up in the summer. It's an insane summer filled with stuff. But it's an insane every single I mean, they could, I guess, put it in September, October, but I don't know if they want to do that because that's in the midst of the fall. That's kind of weird. So, plus they've got the Joker movie in October. So yeah, they couldn't put it there either because it's going to get swallowed up by themselves. In a sense, because the Joker movie is kind of separate. It's its own thing. But yeah, it's really weird. It lives or dies on Shazam, and I think that that's going to tell us. But then again, if they recoup and they kind of reboot in 2021, I guess it would be after the Flash movie, then if they're still going to make that, by the way, I don't know if they are. I mean, I know that it's scheduled to film, but that could fall apart at any given moment. It's pretty much Shazam, and I know that that's weird to say, considering that they have an Aquaman movie and they have a Wonder Woman movie and they have this movie where they haven't introduced us to that character yet. But I'm telling you, man, so much more than people realize rides on that movie. That's gonna determine a whole lot more than a Wonder Woman movie that's definitely gonna make money. Even if Shazam fails, that's gonna make money. And much more than an Aquaman movie that's gonna be swallowed up by the December competition. So I think that Aquaman's kind of just kind of a mid-range threat, really, to this kind of this foundation that they have. Wonder Woman's not a threat at all. It's a sure thing, but Shazam, right in the middle of two gigantic Marvel movies that are going to be probably, give or take a Star Wars, the biggest movies next year. Right in the middle of those, it's going to be swallowed up. Everything, really, that's a big blockbuster in between Captain Marvel and Avengers is going to be swallowed up. But especially the superhero movie, because people are going to not really care about it in the midst of these other two. And especially considering, again, we haven't been introduced to that character. So a lot rides on that release. And it's really fascinating it's going to be fascinating to watch it all happen. All right, guys, our last bit of news is not news at all. I'm bringing back our Oscar beat. That's what I'm officially calling it, our Oscar talk part of this program. Obviously, big festivals have happened: Venice, Telluride, Toronto, and there have been a handful of major contenders that have come out of the gate here. And I just wanted to kind of lay them out. And I won't be talking about this for another several weeks after right now because there are a couple of other film festivals: New York, Chicago. I think LA's in November, late October, something like that. So I'll bring this back around probably mid to late October, once we have a bit of a clearer idea of what the field is after some other movies have premiered. But there are contenders right now, and pretty much the four big ones are going to be First Man, Roma. If Beale Street Could Talk is pretty solid in there, but I think First Man and Roma are kind of the big ones right now, alongside A Star Is Born, and Widows had a strong showing as well. And those are pretty much the contenders. Obviously, there's going to be a whole season to kind of shake this up. There's others that could get in there, especially from earlier in the year, like Black Panther and BlacKkKlansman. First Reformed and Blindspotting are kind of on the bubble, but right now I think that those are the big contenders that have come out of the festival circuit. First Man is the movie about Neil Armstrong. It's from Damien Chazelle. Roma is from Alfonso Cuarón. It's the semi-autobiographical tale of his childhood that premieres on Netflix on December 14th. First Man comes out on October 12th, by the way. If Beale Street Could Talk comes out on November 30th in limited release, and that's the Moonlight follow-up from Barry Jenkins, an adaptation of the James Baldwin novel. And then you have A Star Is Born, which is the third remake of the 1937 William A. Wellman film, and it's a musical drama with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga, which Cooper directed. And the word on these movies is really strong. It's been a lot of fun to see the buzz because it seemed like everybody was raving about movies one after another, um, to a degree that I haven't seen since maybe 2007 when there was like There Will Be Blood and No Country for Old Men and The Assassination of Long Title um, and a bunch of other movies. That was a really strong Oscar season, and I don't think I've seen rave after rave after rave come out of a festival like this since then. I followed this stuff closely, and it hasn't really happened. There's been a lot of times where movies from other parts of the year have kind of made a big splash, but never, not since then in this volume with this level of speed, one after another. Like I said, sometimes these movies were showing, one after another on the same day in the film festival circuit, whether it be at TIFF or Venice. It's really been exciting to see all of this stuff happen because, I'm excited for all of these movies, and it's been a really good year so far. And I think that we're headed for a really, really strong season. But those are the contenders right now. It looks to be, to me, that maybe A Star Is Born is probably the strongest movie. It's certainly the most audience friendly, it seems like. There's been like standing ovations and stuff. So we're probably looking at that for Best Picture and Director, as well as acting for Cooper and Gaga. And probably some other stuff. There's original songs that are written by both of them or co-written by both of them that could very well, show up there. And then you have If Beale Street Could Talk, which, it's a Moonlight follow-up. It's obviously going to be really strong on the basis of its reactions. I'm thinking that maybe that one's going to be a Best Picture and Best Director nominee, as well as, alongside A Star Is Born. Roma is an interesting situation because not only does it come from Netflix, but Mexico just announced that it was the official submission for foreign language film, which kind of dilutes its chances for Best Picture if you know how this works historically. It's not that it's never happened before where it's been nominated in both. Obviously it has. Crouching Tiger, Amour, stuff like that. Those movies have been nominated before, even in the limited field of 5 that happened in 2008 and before that. But I do feel like it does kind of narrow the chances for Roma to be nominated or to be considered so strongly for Best Picture. I'm sure that it'll sneak in, but I'm not sure that it would be a top 5 contender on the basis of this information. I think that it's probably a stronger Best Director contender because I think that Cuarón, telling this story in 70 millimeter and black and white and through kind of the Bildungsroman literature style of just kind of a coming of age story, not with any particular structure, is probably, is something that we don't see very often right now. So in such a way that he apparently is going to be doing this. I think that it's also a Best Actress contender. The main actress is somebody I don't think that she's worked in the U.S. I don't know if she's worked at all before, but she certainly hasn't worked in the U.S. before. Apparently she's a total powerhouse in the role. So that's a big contender across the board, but I think that Best Picture is kind of the question mark in terms of that. So Widows is kind of a question mark all around. Certainly it's Steve McQueen, and I hear that it's a bit meatier than just a genre flick. It's not just a heist movie. I hear that it dips into a lot of sociological territory too, but I don't know if its genre stuff is gonna get in the way. I feel like that's maybe a question mark, but does feel like a strong contender. And then there's First Man, which, I mean, Damien Chazelle. The Academy loves him. They gave him Best Director 2 years ago. He was nominated by surprise for a lot of people for Whiplash a couple years before that. He's directing a big, gigantic movie filled with IMAX stuff. about an American hero, despite the fake controversy that that arose out of that, which was the fact that the American flag isn't in it, even though apparently it is, and very visibly in it. I have a feeling that he's probably currently my choice for the best director winner, just on the basis of the prestige of this material. But obviously we have to find out how it does, how it's considered on the circuit. So that's pretty much where the race stands at the top. And if we could talk all day about the stuff at the bottom, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Obviously, earlier in the year releases are pretty strong too. Black Panther is considered one of the best superhero movies ever made. Has a lot to say, and people love it, so that could clearly be a Best Picture contender. Black Klansman is considered to be the strongest showing for Spike Lee since the days of stuff like Malcolm X, so that's clearly a big contender. I'd like to believe that First Reformed is A24's play this year. I really hope it is, because it feels like a lot of the other stuff that they have is a bit weaker in terms of Oscar season-y stuff. So that's pretty much where it stands, guys, and I will come back with a more structured look at this sometime in October. All right, now we're going to move on to the week's trailers. And the first one, well, I guess first, Chase, did you have any thoughts about it? About the Oscar season?
No, it's like what I was telling you, we were talking throughout the week. Joel and I have only been doing this for a short time, but I think 2018 might be the best year that Joel and I are going to cover so far, and I cannot wait for it. When you hear about, like you said, praise after praise after praise, this might be one of those cases where if I don't do it or if Joel doesn't do it, I know that our friends, my girlfriend would do it. Even Joel's parents would do it to some extent. But we might go crazy trying to figure out an actual top 10 list, and we might get put in a hospital or something, because like if I feel like it's going to cause massive headaches all around.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's getting to the point where I just based on the reactions to some of these movies, I no longer have the certainty that I did that First Reformed will absolutely be my number one. I mean, it's going to be hard to top it, certainly, and I said that at the halfway point and in my review. It's going to be really hard to top that movie, but yeah, I just no longer just hearing about Roma and First Man and all of that. I just no longer have that certainty. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But now we're going to actually get into the trailers. The first one is a Netflix movie. Speaking of Netflix, there's a couple of them this week. And this one is The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. This is the latest film from directors Joel and Ethan Coen. And it's an anthology film. This one tells a series of stories narrated by a character in the movie about a character named Buster Scruggs, who is played by Tim Blake Nelson. You don't get a whole lot of clarification about what these stories are going to be like. You just know that they're about this character. It's set in the Midwest of early in the 1900s, and it's in addition to Tim Blake Nelson, there's also Liam Neeson, James Franco. Or no, wait, is Buster Scruggs? Yeah, I think he is played by Tim Blake Nelson. There's James Franco, Liam Neeson, various other people. There's a bunch of stars. And yeah, I can't wait. Oh, Zoe Kazan's in this as well. So I really like this trailer. I'm a big fan of, with the exception of a couple of movies that I felt were kind of whiffs. I'm a big fan of Joel and Ethan Coen. I think that they're two of the freshest voices, certainly. Fargo is one of my all-time favorite movies. Same goes for No Country for Old Men. So, big fan. I'm a little worried because I feel like when they go comedy, it can be a bit light on its feet. I love Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, but I'm not a huge fan of Hail Caesar. And I think that, it's an okay movie. It was just very, 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 very forgettable. Very, very slight. There's not as much to it as I think a lot of critics gave it credit for being, and it was underwhelming for me. But still, this looks a lot stronger. This is kind of their wheelhouse of uh, a lot of very idiosyncratic dialogue, characters, settings, uh, and yeah, it's just a really strong trailer. So
Yeah, no,
that's my thoughts.
I totally agree. It's one of those things to where even if the Coen Brothers have whiffs every now and then with their comedies, because I agree with you. Hail Caesar is very forgettable. There's not really much to it. It's beautiful to look at, and there's a lot of technical stuff that's great, but overall, it's a very forgettable movie. But the one thing I really like about the Coen Brothers is their sensibility with dialogue and characters. Now, they can steer more towards drama, they can steer more towards comedy, and they can kind of play with both of them as like a marriage of the two. But what I really appreciate about them is even if they have like a whiff, like a Hail Caesar or maybe another comedy that doesn't really work for them, even if they try to attempt it again, I'm always on board because they, like Joel said, they have like this kind of like fresh viewpoint in terms of cinematography and characters and just the way they're written. They're just so interesting and kind of intriguing. You have no idea what the heck's going to come out of their mouths, and that's what makes their movies so fun and enjoyable because they're unique type of characters that they write. And I just love this trailer. The cinematography is gorgeous. I think their kind of off-kilter humor works for this type of movie. It's almost as if they blended their sensibilities from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou and their visual sensibilities of True Grit. So it looks like it's going to be a nice mix of the two, and the cast looks stellar. I love that line at the end where Franco's in the noose and he looks over at the other guy that's freaking out. He's like, "It's your first time." It's like just stuff like that that kind of gives you like a little chuckle because you're like, this is so irreverent, and that's just how the Coen Brothers work. And so I can't wait to see his actors and actresses that they rely on back in another Coen Brothers type of universe movie. So I'm all for it. And you know what? I've said this before, and you know what? I might change my tune depending on what comes out, but Netflix has a pretty good streak with TV shows. I like most of the stuff that they put out. Like all the ones that I watch, I've had nothing but praise. The movies, on the other hand, are very hit and miss, more misses than hits. Like there might be like an occasional solid movie every now and then, but they never had like, besides like Beast of No Nation and like maybe one other one, there's really no movie you can call and go, that was a great movie that Netflix put out. Now, of course, they got Roma, they got Hold the Dark coming out in a couple weeks, and they got like stuff like this, and maybe they're starting to turn it around a little bit. It'd be great to actually have some Netflix distributed movies.
You didn't see Mudbound.
No, I did not see Mudbound yet.
Yeah, so, that's a really good one. I have a feeling that their movies are better when they acquire them than when they make them. Yeah, because they seem to the people who produce the movies seem to like just kind of automatically go to the material that would just be kind of direct to video in the 90s or even the 2000s or direct to TV kind of. So, but then the acquisition team tends to pick up a bunch of stuff that's really, really good and then buries it in the menu, which is really annoying. But yeah, I mean, again though, like Hold the Dark, I think was that acquired by them?
I think it was acquired by them.
Okay, it was acquired.
I think they acquired it at was it Sundance? Or
right. That's right. Yeah, it was either Sundance or South by Southwest or something. But yeah, okay. So yeah, I think that their stuff is generally better when they acquire it. And so something like this, I don't know if it can be, lumped in with something like Bright or whatever, something like that. The Cloverfield Paradox, Mute, stuff like that. That's just really not good. And we'll have another one in a little bit. It's sort of an outlier for even those, but yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So bring us into the second trailer, sir.
So the second trailer is really nothing much to talk about, but I will try my best. I think it's a very good teaser, but it's not really like a good trailer. What am I talking about? It's Captive State. Now, this one is directed by Rupert Wyatt. Now, this is the gentleman that directed the first Planet of the Apes reincarnations, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. This one is set in Chicago. So basically, Joel lied to me, and he did not tell me Chicago was in this current state that is represented in this movie. So he completely lied to me.
I was sworn to silence, man.
Okay. So now that the government knows that you spilled the beans, they're going to shut this down. So this one is set in Chicago, and it's set in a kind of futuristic time frame where it said 10 years ago, aliens came down and they inhabited our planet, and they basically control us now. And so this film will show us kind of both sides, where maybe some of the aliens and how they can kind of control things, and humans, and how maybe some of them might collaborate with the aliens, and maybe some of them are trying to hide and take down the alien ships or whatever. We actually have no clue what the story is about because it's more of a teaser. But I will say, in terms of a teaser, I am interested. It's very atmospheric. I love these kind of like futuristic movies, whether they be dystopian or modern, like this, like modern apocalypse type of stuff. I'm always a sucker for those movies, and this cast is amazing. You got Vera Farmiga, you got Machine Gun Kelly is in this movie.
Oh, really?
Okay,
wow.
So if you don't know who that is, then get on Twitter. It's just best to look at it from there. And of course, John Goodman is in this, and there's a bunch of other character actors there in this. It's a very good cast, and like I said, not much to talk about. But what I can tell you from a visual perspective and interest perspective, I think it works. And I love anything to do with aliens or anything with that matter. And I can't really think of a movie that has been made recently that kind of focuses it from this perspective, where we have aliens that come down and we don't really get to see the fight. We just see them already there, inhabited and controlling us as if they're our new government. So I've really never seen it from that point of view, so that will be kind of fresh and exciting. But I think in terms of a teaser, it works. Now, of course, it doesn't come out until March, so we'll see a full trailer later on. But I think for what it was supposed to do, I think it did pretty well. So, I mean, Joel, obviously, this one kind of came out of nowhere. It wasn't even really on my radar. I don't even think it was on your radar. So now that it has come out and it's on your radar, are you excited?
Not particularly. I just think it looks like The Purge with aliens. But yeah, I mean, talking about Machine Gun Kelly, who I didn't realize was in this, it'll be just really strange when in the middle of the movie it suddenly becomes his 14th answer to Eminem. It's just
he
anyway.
Just stares at the camera, breaks the fourth wall, and you're like, "What? Well, this was a weird turn."
Yep. Making fun of Eminem's age for the 78th time. He's actually a fairly solid actor. He had an appearance in this really overlooked movie called Beyond the Lights a few years ago. That was kind of Gugu Mbatha Rao kind of gave one of the best performances of that entire year. It was barely released and even less advertised, but it was a really good movie, and he played a fellow hip-hop star. She was an R&B star, he was a hip-hop star, and they had this thing that's kind of back and forth a little bit. He wasn't a huge part, but played a character called Kid Culprit. He was a rapper, and he was really good in the movie. And he was also in Nerve a couple years ago, which I didn't remember that because I barely remember that movie. But in any case, yeah, it's interesting that he's in this. Yeah, I don't have much interest in this. It just, it's cool seeing John Goodman in the context that we see him in this trailer, but otherwise just kind of whatever to me. I would usually be into this, but something about it, it doesn't grab me. In any case, the next trailer is one of the weirdest trailers I've seen for something. It's called Ghost Light. This one takes place in a theater, in the wing, kind of in a theater, I guess, or among a theater group, and they're they're arriving. It kind of seems like they're about to perform some Shakespeare, which kind of informs a lot of the plot developments. And a couple of them are in an affair, and they want to kill the woman's husband, and he's played by Carrie Ellis of The Princess Bride. Uh, this is one of the weirdest trailers I've seen, and it does not seem to do a very good job of selling whatever's going on here. It's a great cast. There's a lot of people in it. What's his name? Roger Bart. Carol Kane's in this. Speaking of The Princess Bride, so it's just a weird trailer. Kind of introduces all the cast members in this way. Just over the course of the trailer, we find out who's in it. It's very strange, and I'm not entirely sure it works as a trailer for me. So I don't know. I guess I'm vaguely interested in the material, but it kind of looks like it was. It kind of looks really low budget in a TV movie kind of way. So I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if I'm ever going to see this movie. So, sometimes we do that. We cover trailers of movies that we don't watch, but yeah, it doesn't sell me on it, unfortunately.
Yeah, it actually reminds me of like a Disney Channel original movie, just from the teen boppy like music. Not like pop music, but it's very like bum ba da ba. It's like that weird, like kind of bop music, and then Joel is completely right. When I first saw the kind of slow fade in and slow fade out of the actors' names as the scenes with them were on, I was like, this is so awkwardly edited. And not only that, they picked the wrong scenes to cut together with, and so it was just an awkward trailer all throughout. And Joel's also right. The job of a trailer, whether like Captive State said a lot more in its imagery than this did. I have no idea what's going on in this movie. The whole time I was trying to figure out like where are they, like what's happening, and then at the very end they go, "Oh, the witches are here," and then it just cuts to the title, and not even cuts, it fades to the title, and so I'm like, cool. Where are these witches? What's happening? And so, yes, good cast. A premise that could be interesting if it's told correctly, but this is a good example of a poorly edited trailer. And if you do not think trailer making is an art form, then I don't know you, because it is. No one can just make a trailer and make it good. When I went to film school, our portfolio was to create 7 trailers, whether they be commercials, movie trailers, a news package. You had to fit the criteria, and even me taking like my crappy short films and turning them into trailers, that was a hard task to do. I do not envy anyone that edits trailers, but it was awful. You have, like I said, you were confused to what's going on the entire time. I hated the introduction of all the text of the trailer. It was just all slow fade-ins, and I guess they wanted to make it more ambient. I have no clue, and it's one of the worst trailers I've seen in quite some time in terms of just as an art form, and kind of disappointing considering the cast they got to be in it.
Yeah, it's a big disappointment for sure. Yeah. So, all right, sir. The next trailer.
Okay, so the reason why Joel is laughing, and I'm going to go ahead and just put him on blast because he deserves it. So this guy, 2 weeks ago, when the trailer dropped, was like, okay, so The Other Side of the Wind trailer came out. It was his most anticipated of the year. He was like, can you please just hold out until we get to the Predator episode? I said, yeah, no problem. So I cut it out from last week. I did not talk about it. So I was like, all right, Joel's doing the notes this week. He's going to obviously give himself this movie to introduce. No, he did not. He gave it to me so I can butcher it so you guys can make fun of me. Because besides the film's title and the involvement of Orson Welles, I don't really know much about this. So I'm going to try my best. I think from what I gathered from the trailer and just reading about it, is that Orson Welles was trying to make a very ambitious movie, and he shot all of it. And there was a filmmaker that basically just put it together in post. Am I correct?
Uh, yeah, I
Okay.
think so. I think so.
I mean,
I mean, we haven't seen it.
well, yeah, I
So,
know. I'm just kind of going off of the trailer and the kind of synopsis that Netflix gives.
yeah, yeah.
So if my understanding is correct, Orson Welles made or he shot a film called The Other Side of the Wind way back in the day, and of course Orson Welles passed on, and so that footage was never really tampered with, and so it's kind of like lost footage of his last film, and so there's a person that tried to cohesively put it together to make his final vision come true. And so it actually is under director Orson Welles, and it hits Netflix November 2nd, and also a limited theater run, so it could qualify for awards. I gotta tell you, when Joel put it on his most anticipated list, it was his number one. I didn't really know much about it. I'm aware of Orson Welles. I think he's a very talented filmmaker, actor, etc. But you know what? I'm excited to watch this. I think that the trailer was kind of intriguing. I love behind the scenes type of movies where it shows the behind the scenes making of this movie, or the behind scenes of this director or this editor and their process or whatever. I love behind the scenes making of movies as a movie. I'm a sucker for those, and I think it looks intriguing. I don't really have much more to say. I know Joel has way more research on it than I do, so Joel, take it away. But as far as the trailer goes, intrigued, excited to see it, and I will definitely watch it when it hits Netflix.
Yeah, so apparently, and I'm looking at this now. I'm staying away from the plot synopsis because it's already up there. Everything about the plot is up there, but on Wikipedia, and it's saying that it's actually a mockumentary, which I did not know that until just now. Yeah, it's saying on Wikipedia, the film is a satire of both the passing of classic Hollywood and the avant-garde filmmakers of the new Hollywood of the 1970s. And the film was shot in an unconventional mockumentary style in both color and black and white. It also incorporated a film within a film that spoofed the works of Michelangelo Antonioni, who was one of the premier kind of Italian filmmakers who did a lot of experimental work in the 60s, La Ventura, La Notte, La Clese, Blow Up. I haven't seen any of them, but yeah, so this is really interesting. Basically, there were a lot of legal difficulties that led to this movie just kind of not being finished. So I'm just kind of going in here. So Ernest Hemingway had committed suicide, and Orson Welles had known him for about 30 years at that point. And so he was originally inspired to write a screenplay about an aging bullfighter. That's where all this started. But then he went on to make Chimes at Midnight, which was his reworking of a Shakespeare, and the reworking of the Falstaff from Shakespeare. And so then he went on to start this, but then where there were a lot of legal issues, he got a lot of funding from overseas that fell through, and he hired a lot of his director friends to star in the movie. In fact, the main character is a director, again, inspired by William A. Wellman, a lot of very macho directors like John Ford and stuff. And he cast John Huston, who is Angelica Houston's father. He was a filmmaker who was renowned for many, many years in the 40s and 50s, and later on in the 70s, I think in the 80s he made a comeback before passing away himself. And Peter Bogdanovich was in it. He was he was kind of an up and comer at that point. He's the one who came in and finished the film with Netflix at the end of it. So there was a lot of raw footage that went missing, and yeah, so it's just really interesting how this all came together. It was over the course of 6 years, and it just never finished. Yeah, I think so. Here's the timeline. There's a bunch of production dates on Wikipedia. In August of 1970, he had principal photography began. Then there were 4 months of it in 71. Oh, I'm sorry. Late in 1970, there was also some filming. More of it in 71. A break in the filmmaking in 71 and 72 because of tax stuff. It happened for Wells. He got a bad audit and had to stop. They were about to go do more filming in early 73, and they were stranded by flooding in Spain. And get this, so 4 years into the development of this movie, nobody was cast as the lead role. And finally, in 1974, John Huston was cast. And then filming just kind of went on and on and on for the next couple of years, on and off, And then the principal photography was completed finally in 1976, but then there was a bunch of legal stuff, a bunch of funding that didn't come through, and then it just kind of became this legend in the film world, almost to rival The Day the Clown Cried, where it felt like nobody was going to ever see this movie. Various interviews with people had just kind of, indicated that it was never going to be seen. So it's been a long road to get to this point, and finally Netflix picked it up for $5 million in order to finish it and all of that. So it's been a long road, and the trailer is so fascinating because I think that it shows more than ever that Orson Welles was way ahead of his time for certain. You watch Citizen Kane today, and it does things that no other 40s film did, even after it came out. It took a while. Well, first of all, it took about 20 years for the movie to really take off as this renowned thing. It wasn't until the 60s that people really fully admired and embraced it. But then is when it really started to kind of connect. People were directly influenced by the filmmaking. And so I think that with this trailer, it kind of shows the Orson Welles that everybody knows now. He was not well liked in his time. He was notoriously difficult to work with, and that only got worse and worse. He just became more and more difficult. So this is such a fascinating trailer because it shows that more than ever, he really truly was ahead of his time, and he might have even been ahead of our time, because there's stuff that we see, styles incorporated, just hinted at in this trailer that we have not seen before, and certainly haven't seen in a long time if they do exist already. And yeah, it's a really fascinating, interesting project for Netflix to take on. I'm glad that they're giving it a theater run because that's going to be neat. I would really like to see that. I'm sure that I won't be able to, but Netflix does drop it on my birthday, which is nice. They knew that it was my birthday. I'm just kidding. But I love this trailer. It looks like John Huston. It would be really interesting. Somebody actually said this because it will count. It never released, so it counts. It's not even one of those things where, like that Studio Ghibli movie from a couple years ago that took 25 years to come to the U.S. Only Yesterday kind of sort of could be counted as a 1991 movie, but kind of sort of is a 2016 movie. This is very specifically a 2018 movie because it was never released anywhere. It hasn't even really been seen other than at like private showings and like a single film festival. Never been actually released. So it releases this year, and there's a friend of mine. I guess I won't name him, but he's a friend of mine who was saying on Twitter that he would be utterly tickled if Orson Welles won Best Director this year. And if John Huston won Best Actor. And I have to say, or was nominated, I have to say it's entirely possible because Orson Welles is one of the most beloved voices in cinema history for a reason. Great director. And just something like this, I feel like it could absolutely be the case that we see Orson Welles nominated for Best Director, and John Huston, who's been gone for a while as well, I think since the early 90s, nominated for Best Actor, a director nominated for Best Actor. I feel like it could happen. I really do. And yeah, it's crazy. So I can't wait. I can't wait to watch this finally. The last time it was seen was in early 2018 when a rough cut of the movie was screened for a very, very private group that included Paul Thomas Anderson, Quentin Tarantino, Rian Johnson, Danny Huston, who's John Huston's son, Angelica Huston's brother, Crispin Glover, and then some of the cast and crew. But they're the only ones who've seen this movie in any specific way in full, and I can't wait to finally see it. It was my number one most anticipated, and this trailer convinces me why I was right in my assumption that it would probably be one of the very, very, very best movies of the year, and I have a feeling that it could very well be that from this trailer. It really sells it very well. So I can't wait. I'm so excited. All right. Any thoughts on that? On anything I just said?
No, you know more than I do, and it's quite disturbing that you get this magnificent opus on your birthday, and then as much as I'm looking forward to it, I only get Glass on my birthday weekend. So it is what it is, Joel. You win.
All right, so our last trailer really doesn't have much to say about it, but it's called Viper Club. This one stars Susan Sarandon as a woman who's is it her son? I think
her son went missing.
Yeah, her son goes missing, and she kind of goes to all the wrong places to try to raise the money to get him back. It's a ransom situation, and is approached by person who plays him. Goodness me, I've already forgotten the trailer.
Matt Bomer.
Matt Bomer, that's right. Yeah. I knew it was someone white with a fairly generic face. This one looks okay. It certainly looks worth it. Basically, it looks valuable for Susan Sarandon's performance. That's the only real reason that I would be drawn to this. It looks like a fairly typical story about desperation to get a loved one back from captivity. So that's really all I have to say about this one. It just looks solid. It is a YouTube original. That's pretty cool. I know that it's getting a theater release in very limited fashion. It's mostly a VOD thing, but YouTube originals coming out of the woodwork. They've also got that movie Bodied later this year, the one that kind of made a big to do in Sundance. So really excited, or really intrigued by it, I should say. I'm not super excited, but it is intriguing. So that's all I really have to say here.
Yeah, there's really nothing much to say. It's one of those things where it's going to live or die on her performance. And, I've seen some of the trailers to the YouTube original stuff. They look awful. And this looks like a first decent one. And so...
Yeah.
I'm not jumping up over the moon about it, because it's a story that we've seen over and over again. The intriguing, I guess, fresh spin on this type of story is that, she goes to, campaign money to kind of raise them. And so it's going to get into dirty laundering and stuff. So, I mean, it's, that's somewhat of an interesting spin on it. But, it just looks like a generic film. But I will say, for YouTube's credit, it does look like the best thing they've slapped their name on so far. So I will give them that. But, I guess the good news is I would rather take this than Ghostlight, because I still don't even know what that movie's about. And I'm still sitting here contemplating on who greenlit Ghostlight, who edited that trailer. That's what baffles me the most, Joel.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So my favorite trailer of the week was The Other Side of the Wind. What is yours?
No, I'm going with Coen Brothers. I'm going with the Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
That is definitely the right way to say it.
That's it. That's how it sounded in my head when the title came up. I'm just like, it totally sounds either like that or Jeff Bridges, Rooster Cogburn, and True Grit, like, or the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, like just something like really grovelly and deep. I don't know.
I'm half expecting Jeff Bridges to come in. I'm telling you. All right, so our shared review, we're going to get into it now, and this is for The Predator, which is the new movie from director Shane Black, and it's the third sequel to 1987's Predator, following Predator 2 and Predators. Now, I haven't seen the other sequels, but I have seen the original, which I kind of liked, so, I didn't really have any interest in seeing the new one because I just didn't have any real familiarity with the source material, if you will. But so and the trailers were underwhelming. But I am happy to report to you guys that I think that this new movie is about on par with the original. It's pretty entertaining, and I'm actually going to step away for a second, but I'm gonna first kind of tell y'all what the movie's about. So this one catches up with the Predator that we know, which is about 6 feet, something like that, and he, or it, whatever, comes up against another Predator, which is bigger and more evolved than him. And in the midst of this are the regular human chattel, in this case, a prisoner, or sort of a, I don't know if he's a lieutenant or whatever, but he's a military guy. He's an operative sniper who happens upon the ship when it crash lands in the middle of a sting operation that he's running. And the Predator kills his men on the team, and he is told to remain quiet. He's sent off to be reevaluated, which of course means that his memory is going to be wiped clean. And he joins a bunch of other prisoners. This main character is played by Boyd Holbrook. The prisoners played by the likes of Trevante Rhodes, Keegan Michael Key. Who are the other ones? There's I forgot. Honestly, it's easy to forget them. But anyway, meanwhile, he sent part of the Predator's stupidly sent part of the Predator's gear off to his house, or his old house, where his ex-wife lives with their son, played by Jacob Tremblay, who, in addition to being autistic, is very smart and kind of goes off and wears the mask, and at the same time that Predator is after his mask and armband. And it turns out that the Predator this time is a rogue. And that's why another Predator comes in. So, yeah, I quite like this. I'm going to give it over to Chase first to tell what he thinks. I already know what he thinks, so I'm just going to step away real fast. Chase, take it over, buddy.
Okay, so with the Predator, here's where I'm going to kind of do this for you guys, because, okay, so let's just start from the beginning. I've seen the first Predator. I own it on Blu-ray. I think it's a fun action film. I saw a little bit of Predator 2. I need to rewatch it, but I thought it was, once again, enjoyable. I'm not like a super like hardcore fan of this franchise. I love creature features. I love anything to do with monsters or aliens, so I'm going to be there regardless. And of course, the AVP movies were hilarious when they came out during Joel and I's time. And I love the Alien films, so, there is, like, some interest there because I know that they have crossed them over before, and I don't know, I'm one of those people that kind of likes that idea, even though the movies have been kind of whatever, but the Predator, to me, has just been one of those franchises. It's been like, cool, you make another one, I'll be there. Now, the first two trailers that came out, as we kind of talked about in this show, I didn't really care for. I wasn't really pumped up. I was just like, cool, it looks decent, I guess. But it was that last and final trailer to where a week before they came out, they laid down the gauntlet and did this red band 2.5 minute blood-soaked trailer. And it was brutal and in your face and just super, super violent. And it was at that point to where I was like, I'm excited now. I actually want to see what happens. Maybe that was just one of their a ploy to show a couple of violent scenes to get you to go, and I'd be like, it worked. And I was hoping that they did not show all of the best scenes or anything. Okay, so getting into the movie now. This is really awkward for me because I like to be honest with you guys, but I also realize that not all of you that listen to the show are going to see every single movie that comes out and see like 3 or 4 movies a week. I get that. And so it is a very awkward thing to say, but I like this movie. I think it's a lot of fun, but I'm not going to recommend this movie to you guys. I don't recommend it in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to forget about this movie by the end of the year. I don't want to ever watch it again, but at the same time, I like this movie. So I mean, like, what do you do? Like, Joel, you're gonna have to help me out with this clear confusion that I have, because it's one of those cases to where I enjoy this movie for what it was. I enjoy sitting there for an hour and a half. Is it stupid and dumb? Sure, but I walked out going, hey, that was a great, entertaining Monday night. And now I'm in this awkward position where I have to tell our listeners that I don't recommend this movie. I don't even want them to watch it. Because especially if you're not a fan of this franchise, I don't think you're going to like this movie at all. If you are not really a fan of alien movies or creature movies, you're probably not going to like it. The only people that are going to like this movie are weird people like Joel and I who love just corny action flicks, or if you're a fan of The Predator. This is the only 2 groups of people this movie appeals to. So, I mean, we're going to review this movie. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to give it a slightly higher grade than what most critics are giving, but I don't recommend it. Now, if you are curious after Joel and I's take on this movie, then I would suggest a rental. There's nothing wrong with that. Rent this movie. There's no reason to see it in a theater. So I guess, Joel, do you want me to go ahead and just get into the review?
Sure.
Oh. I think that just threw Joel off because he doesn't want to talk about it. No, this movie's a very quick one to kind of review. A couple of things that kind of irked me, but for the most part, it's just it's a one-note movie that doesn't really do much, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So, Shane Black, who co-wrote this and directed this film, also was one of the actors involved with the original Predator, so he's got some type of knowledge with this universe and these characters. He is the behind the director's chair, and just to touch upon Shane Black, besides the stupid thing that he did with hiring his friend, he is a very talented filmmaker. I think Kiss Kiss Gang. I almost said Kiss Kiss Bang or Gang Bang, and that is definitely the porno version. I apologize for that. Please don't think of me as a disgusting person. So Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is a fantastic modern kind of noir film. It's very well written. It's an extremely funny film. It's action packed. It's a really well edited film. It's probably my favorite one that he's done so far. Iron Man 3 is growing on me, and then The Nice Guys is a really great film as well. So I had a lot of expectations for this. Now, what Shane Black gave us was something different, and it was more just, a bloody slasher film with the Predator as Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. There's nothing wrong with that. He presented that, and that's what he delivered. Now, what I think Shane Black did the best in terms of directing, because we'll get into writing in just a second, but in terms of directing, I thought he utilized the R rating really well. He really just made it a complete splatterfest and made it entertaining on that front. There's some very interesting kills in this film. There's some really interesting action scenes that were, somewhat compelling. And I think for the most part, Shane Black just created an extremely entertaining movie, whether it be messy or not. And I was at least entertained from start to finish, and I think that also has to do with the editing of the film. I think it's a pretty decently paced film to where, like, I wasn't, like, wanting to get out of there. I was like, I kind of wanted to see what happens next type of deal. So I will give Shane Black credit is that he's able to write movies to where it's a lean, kind of tight movie, and there's really no extra fat, which is great because I don't want directors to waste their time with scenes that don't really make sense for the movie. Shane Black created something from start to finish that was just a very straightforward to the point movie, and it was a splatterfest genre film. I mean that's all he basically did. Now, getting into maybe some of the writing, is the story kind of simple? Sure. Predator comes to Earth. They don't know what's going on. Signal goes off, and it's all Jacob Tremblay's fault, by the way. Signal goes off. Super Predator comes down to kill the original Predator. Was the original Predator warning us about something, killing it? Whatever. It's a very, they set up that little premise, and then you have the mercenaries or whatever going after the Predator, and then the violence ensues. It's just a nonstop type of movie in that regard. Now, one of the issues I have with the writing, and I'm sure Joel will get into it when he talks about it, is the characterizations of some people using Tourette's and other conditions that people may have in real life and using it for comedic purposes. I don't know. It just didn't really kind of come across to me in a positive way. It felt really awkward, and I didn't really know how to respond. My audience was laughing, but I like Thomas Jane as a person and as an actor, and he did fine in this movie, but I don't know, just the way he would portray like him or like other people in the group, I don't know, it just didn't come across well to me. And I understand that Shane Black wants to represent people with like autism or Tourette's or whatever he wants to do, because he himself has stated that he has Tourette's. So I totally get that. Representation is great, but it didn't really come across well to me, and I didn't really think this movie needed that type of humor. I don't know. It's just it's a creature feature. Like, dude, I don't know. It didn't really seem like this was the movie to add representation like that, so it didn't really make sense to me. And some of the other characters are kind of sidelined. Speaking of characters and choices, yes, some of them are more prominent than others, and I kind of wish others would have been more in the forefront, but they all had their moment to shine, so I guess it's fine, it's whatever. So that's, Shane Black's portion of my review. The acting, on the other hand, is fine. I actually thought that Olivia Munn, Boyd Holbrook, Keegan-Michael Key to some extent, were all good. I mean, for what they were given, it's not really anything where I'm just like, oh man, this is this acting needs to be impeccable. It's like I realized what I was getting going in, and especially the way the movie started, I was like, okay, this movie is gonna be way different than I thought it was gonna be. So the acting itself is just, it's kind of, it's serviceable in some actors and actresses in this movie, and then it's good in other regards. Really, nothing more to say. It's just like they were serviceable. They kicked ass in their action scenes. They did semi-well in their dramatic scenes. It was fine. And then, like I said, I pinpointed on the editing. Very smooth film, in my opinion, even though it is kind of shorthanded in some story elements and character elements. I did still think just carrying it from point A to point B, I still thought in that regard it was a smooth transition, even though it had a couple bumps. I think overall it was a decently paced film. So Here's actually where my biggest gripe is, and I don't think anyone else will probably pull this up as a negative, but I will start with kind of like I'll ease into it. So Larry Fong is the director of photography of this film, and I actually think he's a very talented individual, whether you look at anything he's done with Zack Snyder, BBS. Did he also do Man of Steel, Joel?
He did not. I think that he did...
Oh, no, he did 300.
Yeah, he did 300.
Yeah.
He did... I think he did Watchmen as well.
He did Watchmen, BBS. He did Kong Skull Island. So the guy knows how to frame a shot. I have mad respect for that guy. He is one of the best DPs in the business. And I will, take you up on that debate. However, the visual look of this film was kind of bland, and every single scene was overly lit. I know that's such a weird kind of like kind of thing about the movie that's like the most negative, but every single scene, whether it be Boyd Holbrook's Jacob Tremblay's house, or a barn that they were in, or the bus that they were in, or the Predator ship, everything was so overly lit to where it looked like a sterile hospital. It didn't really feel like, it didn't feel real. It just felt like a set, and I was like, this is such a weird choice for lighting. Like, everything was just so overly lit, and I don't know if that was to emphasize the violence and the blood splatter, but it didn't work for me on a visual front, and it's definitely one of the most blandest movies that I've seen this year on a visual aspect. So that's pretty much it. And then I guess to comment on the music, I thought it was kind of funny because I thought I was watching Star Wars at first. That music was just like loud, in your face, and kind of unnecessary to be that epic, but I guess it kind of...
And then what's happening in the opening scene too.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
how it starts. Yeah,
it's the type of music that is very, very unnecessary and kind of epic and cheesy, but I guess it kind of fits with the tone of the movie. So overall, does it have problems? Sure. Is it something I want to watch again? No. Have I already forgotten about most of it? Yes. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. But you know what? I'm going to give it a B-. I actually had a fun enough time in it to where it didn't irritate me to bash it like some of the other critics have given it. And I'm not really necessarily praising it from the kind of Midnight Madness from TIFF, but I will kind of be in the middle. And I was debating on whether C+ or B-, but I think if you want to rent it for $4 when it hits iTunes to stream it, then I will suggest that. But B- for me. I know that Joel and I are kind of in the minority with this movie versus everyone else that seems to just kind of really take it down. But I know Joel and I are kind of on the same page. Is that right?
Yeah, we are. It's very much an in-the-moment movie.
Yes.
It's not something that we're going to remember in October.
Hell, I don't remember it now.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's been about a week. So for me, I think that I had two prevailing thoughts here. One, that I think that there is a bit of fat on the meat, if you will, in terms of the characters, because I think that the other prisoners, it basically only does anything with maybe one and a half of them. Really, because we have Trevante Rhodes' character, we learn a little bit about him, and he's solid. And we have a little bit of insight into the Keegan-Michael Key character, although I disagree. I think he's annoying in this. He only did one thing that made me laugh.
I will agree with you, though. His every time he said like any type of mom joke, I rolled my eyes. It's like that's not Shane Black at like his peak writing. It's like it's very juvenile Shane Black, and it didn't really come across well to me.
Yeah, it was annoying. And then the other ones are just kind of there. That's why I couldn't even remember who played them, honestly. It's just anyway, but yeah. So I also think that the movie is kind of heavy on the exposition. There's a lot of explaining about the science and the reasons why a predator would come and all of that. But then my other prevailing thought was that I think that Black and co-screenwriter Fred Dekker, who interestingly enough wrote RoboCop 3, it's kind of a interesting person to bring into this, um, do a pretty solid job of uh, confront or approaching everything with a sense of sarcasm. So you'll have like this scene where a character explains to another character some important concept, and then the other character has kind of gotten it pretty early on. They're pretty sharp. They know what they're talking about, so they'll reduce it. They'll reduce that idea that's being overly expositorized, if that's a word, overly explained, to its very, very, very basics. You have that a lot with Olivia Munn's character, for instance. She stars here as a scientist that's on the payroll um, to come in if there's any sort of extraterrestrial contact, and she kind of understands what's going on. So other characters will be explaining something to her, and she'll be like, "I got it," and she'll basically just sum it up in 4 or 5 words, and it's really funny. And I think that that kind of reflects the whole movie, because the whole movie is kind of fighting against its own nonsense. The movie itself wants to be no nonsense, and it ultimately is no nonsense, but there's also a lot of nonsense in it. And I think that the movie understands that, and so it takes an attitude toward its own plotting that I think it's very reductive in a good fun way. And so I thought that was really clever how they were able to manage that. Um, and so yeah, then you have the kind of some of the extraneous characters. Now some of the characters are not. I mean, Munn's character, Holbrook's character, Jacob Tremblay's character. Sterling K. Brown is kind of the human antagonist of a sort. Here, he's really good in this role, too. He kind of takes the role and runs with it, as this guy named Traeger, who kind of wants to control the situation for other reasons. But honestly, the story of these movies is the Predator. And I think that in those parts of the movie where you have these two creatures who really don't care about the petty human squabbling and really only care about, fighting each other, it's also an act of reduction on the parts of the screenwriters to understand that what we've come for is a bunch of gore, violence, and explosive viscera. And I think that it delivers on that in a way that kind of made me forget about all of my problems. Not all of them, but not literally forget them, obviously. Otherwise, I would give it a much higher rating than I am. But I think that there are enough distractions that it is a very, very flawed, marginal success. But I think it's a success because it promises things and it delivers on those promises in a very specific kind of way. And I think that it has a lot of firepower. There's a lot of real appeal to the cast, even if they're playing kind of nobodies with no character development. And that's where the value of the film is for me. It doesn't have much value beyond that. It's very much low-hanging fruit in terms of big budget entertainment. But it works because it understands that it has promised the audience certain things, and it delivers on that promise with a lot of chutzpah, a lot of explosiveness, a lot of showmanship. I guess I agree that the movie kind of looks bland visually, but I really also didn't care because I think that it's still well choreographed violence. It maybe doesn't look like a pretty picture, but I don't think everything needs to look like a pretty picture these days. I think it looks attractive. I don't.
Well, I
think
guess
that
if you want to put it in comparison, did Kong Skull Island really need to look good? But Larry Fong did something with it to make it look somewhat appealing.
That's true. I guess that's a good point. And it's a movie. That's a movie actually that worked for very similar reasons. I think they're very similar movies in that way. But yeah, I just think that it looks attractive and again, well choreographed, well shot action. About some of the problems that you had, the treatment of learning conditions here is interesting because on the one hand we have the Thomas Jane. There we go. That's an actor who's in here. I totally forgot.
Wait, Joel. I just mentioned him 10 minutes
No,
ago.
I know. I totally see. I'm telling you. So Thomas Jane's character has Tourette's, and they like treat it as this weird comic relief thing, which I didn't get. And then in the same breath, they'll have characters making fun of the Jacob Tremblay character for having autism, but then his autism ends up being a plot point. If you think about it, they bring up the fact that I guess I don't want to spoil too much, but they bring up the fact that he's kind of he's the next in the evolutionary step for humans. And I won't get into how that might relate to the whole movie, but they do touch on that, and it's really interesting that they have enough respect for that to recognize that it might be a bit beyond neurotypical, people who don't have that condition. But then you have the thing where the Tourette's is the punchline of a joke, and I don't get why. I don't get the split there. It's really weird. So that was an issue, and I guess that is on the writing, the conceiving, the conceptual nature of this. But I like the actors, and I think that Boyd Holbrook's kind of bland here, which he wasn't in Logan, for instance. I thought he was a lot of fun there, but he was kind of bland here. There's not a lot for him to do other than be the hero and do a lot of actiony stuff. There's not a lot of actory stuff that he gets to do. He doesn't get to stretch his legs a whole lot, so that leaves it to the supporting cast. And I mentioned Sterling K. Brown is awesome here. I really liked him. Thought he was slimy and a lot of very cheerfully profane. There's a lot of language in this movie, and he uses most of it, and he attacks it really well. And and then the other ones, some of them are annoying, some of them are fun, but for me, this is just very much a movie where I sat there and I had a good time, and afterward, when it was still leaking out of my brain the events of the movie, I still had to tell myself, I was like, but man, this is a good, solid thing that you can just go into the theater, disengage for 107 minutes, and have a good time with a movie that you watched. And I think that we underestimate that a lot these days. We ask for a lot more substance than this movie provides, but I think that in place of the substance, you have a lot of things happening in a way that's just entertaining and in a very very kind of basic sense. It's a very basic film. There's a very basic structure. There are very basic characters. There's a very basic conflict. But I think that it works because, again, it understands that about itself. And I don't think that it doesn't try to be more than it is, for instance. It doesn't try to introduce any sort of philosophy. And so, or whatever, some like deeper level that wouldn't fit, because it wasn't in the first movie, for instance. The first movie, again, I've only seen that one otherwise, so I can't speak to the quality of the second or third, but the first movie was very similar, and I think I would give exactly the same rating as this movie because it worked for exactly the same reasons. It provided a lot of appealing performances, including, I think, one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's best. It had a lot of really well choreographed action. Well choreographed in ways that are different than this movie, I think, and a lot of gore and just a lot of high octane entertainment. And I think that this new movie works in the same way. So yeah, I'm on the same page as you. It's a very a very slight B minus. It could easily be a C plus, but I think that again, the movie works for what it is, and that it's like the ultimate definition of that phrase. It is what it is, and yeah. So I'm giving it a B minus as well. It works.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things to where like I know there's a lot of people that do not like this movie, and I usually if Joel and I review something, I'll kind of just look at last week's or like even the past like couple weeks and like just kind of compare. I would still rather watch The Predator than The Nun, like hands down. And I have more issues with The Predator, so it's just very weird how we kind of perceive movies. But yeah, it's just Like Joel, like I don't really recommend it to our listeners, but like, would you recommend The Predator in theaters or just wait until rental?
Well, okay, so that's the other thing. I was waiting for you to bring that up again. Otherwise, I wasn't. But the word recommend is interesting. I don't think that there's a lot of room to move around in that word. So I think that if we're giving it a B minus and we're saying that it's pretty good, then I think that we both are kind of recommending it in spite of the fact that it won't change anybody's life. It doesn't, the word recommend doesn't have to be totally um, reserved for situations where it's some really really like a movie with staying power. I don't think you have to do that. So I think I would recommend this to to anybody who just wants to have a good time for a couple hours and doesn't mind, somebody who might respond to a lot of violence and language and stuff. It's a very R-rated movie, so if you like that kind of thing where it's just a let loose creature feature, I would recommend that. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't recommend it in other contexts either. I just think it's a fun movie. Um, so I guess I guess it's just an interesting case where um, it depends on your definition of the word. I see where you're coming from, where you wouldn't like recommend it to just anybody. It has a very specific audience, I think, um, but still, I think it's a good movie. That's all I can say. I think I think it's a fun movie. There we go. I think it's a fun movie, and I think that people will have fun with it. Do I think it means anything in the long run? No, but I don't know if that's quite the definition of the word recommend. So I would recommend it.
Well, I mean, you heard it from his mouth and my mouth. It's just kind of like, if you want to take a chance on it, you know our stances on it. So there you go.
All right. Y'all have to bear with me. I had to put something in my stomach, so I got a little snack with me. Um, all right, so I have two extra reviews for you guys today. And the first one is going to be for the other big wide release this week, and that is A Simple Favor. This one is the latest movie from director Paul Feig, and it's kind of a divergence from his recent output. It's his first dramatic effort in about 15 years since a little Holocaust drama he made called I Am David. That was before the days of, when he was looped in on stuff like The Office and made Unaccompanied Minors and then a bunch of movies with Melissa McCarthy in it. This one, though, is not a straight drama, which is something that I was expecting, and it kind of subverted that expectation. There's a lot of dark comedy here, too. It's kind of a dark satire. The setup of this one is that we follow a mommy vlogger who has been widowed, and she lives with her son. She's played by Anna Kendrick, and she comes to befriend another mom at the school, played by named Emily, played by Blake Lively, and they just they get along, but it turns out that there's a lot of secrets for Emily, that Emily is keeping from pretty much everybody, including Stephanie is Anna Kendrick's character's name. And one day, Emily disappears, and Stephanie's kind of frantic. She was asked to pick up Emily's son from school, and then never heard from her, or hasn't heard from her in several days. So she fears the worst and calls the police. An investigation is launched, and I will reveal only two other things. I will reveal very, very vaguely, sort of. Well, one of them's vague, one of them's more specific. Emily's husband, Sean, played by Henry Golding, who's straight off of Crazy Rich Asians. This is a big year for him. Sean is a prime suspect, and the other thing, this is very vague, is that a body is found. And I have to reveal that because nothing in this movie is what it seems, and this is another one of those movies where you have to uh, distrust the veracity of everything you see and everyone you meet. It's very much in the same vein of, a recent movie like Gone Girl, um, but better. And I know that I just kind of threw a wrench in the works. I think that this is a better movie than Gone Girl because I am not a fan of Gone Girl. I think that that movie devotes a lot of time onto the big, gigantic reveal in the middle of it and forgets the entire point that it was trying to make in the process, and sacrifices his characters also in the process. And this movie kind of fixes that problem because this, I think, is ultimately a movie about the characters stuck within this mystery, and it really makes a great use of the performances from Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively, who are both really good here, as kind of these suburban moms with secrets. Both of them have secrets. And, Emily's are a little more shocking when we learn them. But Stephanie, she's got some skeletons in her closet. And that was a real surprise to me because as this kind of moves toward its resolution, the usual kind of satire about suburban utopia comes to take shape, but so does something of a tragedy, and it takes a lot of twists and turns. It relies a lot on the dissolving psychology and like deterioration of these characters, but it also never loses focus on the satire angle either. And so there are segments here that are really funny. There's comic relief in the form of a couple of the other teachers. There's the fact that one of the framing devices is Stephanie's vlog, which kind of claims to be about be DIY tips, like recipes and how to make friendship bracelets and all that. But she'll bring up the topic and then immediately divert to the case surrounding Emily, sometimes giving away way too much detail for video into a case, and that's really funny. It's a really pointed satire about this kind of existence, and the whole movie just ends up being this really fun, but also kind of unnerving movie about kind of about the secrets that we all keep from each other, the secrets that we tell each other, and the secrets we tell of ourselves and to ourselves. And it's just really interesting. It's a lot of fun. It kind of enters into a routine in the middle act, but especially as Stephanie kind of ingratiates herself into Sean's life and all of that at a certain point. But it is really, really a fun movie. Really good performances, very slick cinematography, a good little mystery, and I'm gonna give A Simple Favor a solid B. Are you interested in? I know that you are already interested in this, but does that interest you more?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, ever since I saw the trailer, I was like, I love both of those actresses. I love me some Paul Feig. I'm all for that. So it's not one I'm going to catch out in theaters, but I know my girlfriend wants to see it. I want to see it, so it'll probably be one I check out on rental down the road. But I mean, I'm glad that you like it, and I've heard a lot of other people say it's surprisingly good. So maybe I'll get off my butt this week, and maybe your words of somewhat praise, some surprising praise, will get me to go see it sooner.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Now, this next surprise review is one that you have seen. We reviewed this together for Dallas movie screenings. This one is called We the Animals. This is the limited release that you should give a chance. And this is the debut feature of director and co-writer Jeremiah Zagar, who is adapting a novel of the same name. I think it's also called We the Animals by Justin Torres. This one, I'm just going to come out with it, doesn't really tell a story. This one is, again, kind of like a build-on, which basically just follows kids as they come of age in a certain milieu. And in this case, it's rural upstate New York. The kids are, I think, of Mexican heritage, maybe. And their parents are played by Raul Castillo and Sheila Vand. And we eventually follow one of them, but really it's just about these kids and their mother trying to escape a home situation where the father is rather abusive, but like lying about it all the time, trying to cover up for the fact, for instance, that when he hits his wife, he's somehow preparing her for dental surgery. It's a little detail, but it's important because we kind of get an idea for how this household works. Eventually, the mom catches on after several reunions with her husband, which are all believable, even though they're kind of baffling, because we understand that this is what happens in real life, too. There are couples in an abusive relationship who ebb and flow in and out of each other's lives. It happens. We know what should happen, but it does happen, and this is a movie that takes place entirely within the current headspace of its characters. Sometimes they're fantastical, but for the most part, this is a really naturalistic and affecting movie about navigating childhood. It doesn't break any new ground. It's, I know that it received raves in Sundance, and I think that maybe that was a little bit over exaggeration of its quality, but the performances are all, likewise very naturalistic. All of the kids are relative newcomers. I think only one of them had done 2 other movies that are coming out around this time. The other 2 had not acted before, and really good performances from them. Raul Castillo is good as the father, kind of a limited role for reasons I won't reveal, but the real stunner here is Sheila Vand, who has been kind of floating around in movies for a couple of years now. Hasn't really gotten like a huge break. She's also appeared in some television shows, but she's terrific here as Ma, who that's what she's known as in the movie. And she's just trying to escape. She's trying to get her kids out of this world that has been created for them. Meanwhile, of course, they're kids with a certain perspective, and they understand, I think, more than she realizes about all the situation. And the film ultimately focuses on one of the kids, Jonah, played by Evan Rosado, who knows exactly what's going on. Even though he's the youngest of the 3, he is very perceptive. And the movie is about his sort of coming of age, and also in a certain way, because of how this movie turns into something else, also his sexual awakening as a young man. And it's all very interestingly filmed. There's a lot of poetic camera movements and again, naturalistic photography. Upper New York is captured in a way that is lyrical. Seems like it could be in the Midwest to me. There were times when I thought it was, and it's quite lovely. It's very well performed, and I liked it. And I'm also giving that one a solid B. So that's probably the best movie, the best theatrical release that I watched this week. Also, but and The Predator is the weakest, but I think it's a pretty good weekend, either for the 2 wide releases that I saw that I mentioned that y'all can see, or this limited, this sort of independent project that if it's playing near you, definitely take a chance, because I think it'll quite surprise you. So yeah, B-, B, and B for me. So it's kind of a B weekend, but good stuff all around. I know that you were pretty much in the same vein as me on this one, right?
Yeah, I gave it the same grade. It's a solid movie. I don't think it's gonna make it anywhere on my list personally or whatever, but right, I think for an experience of a coming of age tale and just growing up as a child in that type of environment, I think they did a really great job kind of like capturing this like really beautiful surreal type of look through a child's eyes. And it was definitely something that we haven't really seen that this year so far, so it was a nice little solid movie. There's really nothing too bad with it.
All right, folks, you got some good options. And now it is Chase's favorite time of the week.
No, it is not.
I'm just gonna keep making that joke.
Did you
all right.
did you even get a kind of like sense of the whimper in my voice last week because I had to just do the box office without you? I'm like, well, Joel's not here to guess anything, and so I had to just read it straight up like a buffoon. So it wasn't as fun.
All right, so your hints this week, it was kind of a packed week, not just in the wide release, but like I think somebody said that 40 small releases opened. So in addition to, and that's not even like counting the stuff that was expanding. So insane week, there were 4 big releases, and your hints are The Predator, A Simple Favor, Unbroken Path to Redemption, and White Boy Rick. So take it away. Don't forget, previous recent releases, and give me what you think the top 5 are.
Okay, so not by much, but I will say The Predator is number 1. I will also say the holds from last week are going to somewhat trickle down, and so I will say Crazy Rich Asians is number 2. Here's where it gets tricky, because I don't know if like the Meg has stayed in there, or if the Unbroken movie has snuck in there, or if Simple Favor was good enough to propel it to a 3 or 4 spot. So,
don't forget last week.
Oh, that's right. Okay, never mind. Yeah, as soon as
I knew
Joel,
where you were going, and I was like, oh my gosh. No.
Yeah, as soon as Joel said it, I now know. Okay, so number 1 is The Predator. Number 2 is The Nun. Number 3 is Crazy Rich Asians. Then I will go A Simple Favor and The Meg. Because I don't think White Boy Rick or the Unbroken movie made it in there, but that's what I'm going to go with.
Okay, so repeat that.
So Predator 1, 2 is The Nun, 3 is Crazy Rich Asians, 4 is A Simple Favor, and then 5 is The Meg.
Okay, so you got 4 movies correct, but only 3 placements correct.
Oh,
wait.
Man, that's probably the best I've done in 5 years.
Wait.
Woo!
I'm sorry, maybe 2. Maybe 2. I'm not sure. Anyway,
oh, my God.
All right.
Joel's teasing me, and it's not working for my heart right now.
All right, so to start off, dropping from number 3 to number 5 is Crazy Rich Asians.
Damn.
With 8.7 million. It has a total domestic gross of 149.6 and a worldwide gross of 187.5. I don't think it's open in many foreign markets yet, though. It has a $30 million budget. It's doing fine. Really good movie, too, so glad people are seeing it. Debuting at number 4 is White Boy Rick.
Wow, I actually made it in there.
Yeah, with 8.8 million. And it's going to do fine. It's got a $29 million budget. This is one of those things. It's going to do fine. I'm not super worried about that. I'm sure that Studio 8 isn't either. Debuting at number 3 is A Simple Favor with 16.1 million. It doesn't have a listed budget. I could probably look that up elsewhere, but its worldwide gross is 19.6, so doing pretty well. Dropping from number 1 to number 2 is indeed The Nun with 18.2 million, and that was a relatively sizable drop, 66.2%, but I guess that's understandable. The domestic gross is 85.1 million, and the worldwide gross is 228.7. It has a $22 million budget. It's literally made 10 times more than it cost. Too many people are seeing that movie. It's just very whatever. I didn't even review it, and it's just as well, because if I was trying to review it, I would barely have anything to write. It's a very forgettable, basic in a way that The Predator isn't. Like The Predator works despite the fact that it's very basic. The Nun does not, because it's very basic. And then yes, debuting at number 1, The Predator with 24 million, and it has a worldwide total of 54.7 million with an $88 million budget. So not a great opening, I guess, but kind of but whatever. All right. So then otherwise, Unbroken Path to Redemption continues Pureflix's attempt to make some sort of dent in the film market, and it's not working because it opened at number 9 with 2.4 million.
Wasn't it the same placement as the last one that opened up?
Yeah, and it was a very similar number too. That was Death of a Nation. No. Death of a Nation didn't even make the top 10. But I think that God's Not Dead opened around the same. The third one, I should say, opened around the same place. So yeah, they're not as big as I think they are. And so there's that. Let's see. Any big drops? Okay. The movie from a couple weeks ago that we probably don't even remember exists, but did in fact come out. Ken, that movie about the kid with the otherworldly gun and James Franco's in it, dropped a whole 96.8%.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, it lost 2,000 theaters and it only made $26,000 this weekend.
Wow.
It dropped from number 17 to number 38. Let's see. Mile 22 dropped from number 13 to number 24. Only made 210,000. Good. People need to stop seeing it. Happy Time Murders, similar drop from 15 to 25. Only made 140,000 this week. Jurassic World is still above them. if that gives you an idea. Let's see. Any big rises? So Crazy Rich Asians, I think, made its biggest drop yet, 33.8%. I don't think it has dropped that much thus far. Peppermint dropped big time, 54.8%. It went from number 2 to number 6. And then I guess you would guess the Meg as well. I forgot to mention that. That one dropped from number 4 to number 7. It made 3.8 million. It's at 137.1. It has literally just made its baseline budget back. So, whatever. And then, let's see, any big rises? No big rises that are really interesting, honestly. Nothing really significant opened. A24 had a movie out this week that made 20,000. It's a VOD thing, so whatever. The Children Act. That Lizzie movie opened in 4 theaters and made 49,000. So it's pretty good. But other than that, it's kind of an uneventful week. Next week, speaking of next week, we'll be able to tell people that we are reviewing White Boy Rick. We're kind of porting that over to next weekend because there's really not much that's interesting in wide release to both of us enough that we would review it. I'll be obviously reviewing one of those 2 wide releases as a surprise review, but White Boy Rick is going to be our review, and so I'm only kind of vaguely excited about that one, honestly. But it's a good trailer. Kind of looks like a blah movie to me, but that'll be next week, and we'll see. I feel like next week at the box office is going to be around the same thing. Honestly, there's not a whole lot that's opening. I think the next big box office weekend is going to be Venom. That's what I'm guessing. So that's it this week.
Yeah, it's one of those things to where when Joel and I were going over the schedule, I was like, I really do not want to go pay to see The House with the Clock in its walls and whatever that one is, and all the rest of it coming out. So I was like, yeah, let's just spill over White Boy Rick, because you know what? To that movie's credit and Studio 8's credit, they've been advertising the hell out of that movie, and it's like, okay, fine, I will go see it. Like, every time I turn on a YouTube video or a Hulu video, there's always a White Boy Rick ad, and they poured all of their heart and soul into that marketing. Good Lord. So, yeah, that is what we're discussing.
I'm seeing it tomorrow evening. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm seeing it, Tuesday. So, yeah, we're seeing it roughly at the same time. So, that will be our main review next week. And then the last week in September is kind of fun because we're not doing any new release. We're doing a Netflix movie. So that will be really interesting. But I actually agree with Joel. The next big weekend box office-wise is not only Venom. I'm going to go ahead and say this right now. And Joel, you can document it. You can hold me to it. If I'm wrong, that's fine. I actually think A Star is Born and Venom are going to be so neck and neck. I think their difference is going to be maybe $2 million or less. I
Yeah,
actually think it's going to be
very
really
negligible.
close.
Yeah.
So, that's going to be our first kind of big weekend into, I guess, the Halloween season, I guess. But, so that will be next week. And then, of course, Hold the Dark will be our final September episode to kind of round out the month. But that will do it for this week's episode, guys. But let us know all down below what you thought about everything that we talked about, movie-wise, news-wise, or trailers-wise. But, if you want to get up-to-dates on other reviews that Joel does, Joel, where can the level people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Real Joel Copling, on Letterboxd at jcopling. You can find some of my writing, such as this weekend, at DallasMovieScreenings.com. That's where Chase's and my shared review of The Predator can be located. And then at my own website, joelonfilm.com, you can read reviews, of course, of The Predator, Simple Favor, and We the Animals. I also caught up at home with Adrift, Beast, and Damascus covers, so you can read all those reviews now.
Yeah, if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, it's at RealChaseLee. Subscribe to my YouTube channel when I throw up reviews that I probably won't review on this podcast. Like, for instance, I'm going to the Life Itself screening on Wednesday, so that will be dropped probably Wednesday or Thursday, so there you go. And, of course, the very interesting Oath review I'm going to be having to think about, because I don't even know how to word this review for it, but that will be up there eventually. So all sorts of fun little goodies. And, of course, this podcast is on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud. Well, actually not SoundCloud this week. I forgot to click it. Sorry. CastBox, Spotify. We're kind of all over the place. So please locate us, find us, and if you like us, please spread it around and let people know this is the definitive movie podcast. And hey, if you listen to this entire movie podcast and you weren't a movie fan, well, hopefully we convinced you to be one, because we love movies. You guys love movies. That's what's so great about this show. This has been episode 247. Next week is episode 248. We will see you guys there for another great episode of this fantastic podcast with myself, Chase. That is Joel over there. So we'll see you guys next weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.